He walks onto his penthouse balcony and sees his daughter's English tutor speaking into a secure phone in code to an FBI handler. She's been embedded in his home for 6 months. His 8-year-old girl adores her, and with one coded phrase, she can collapse a $4 billion arms empire and send him to a prison cell for the rest of his life. He can't touch her. He can only watch his world unravel. The dealer is Yi Park. His business is moving weapons for North Korea's most notorious arms network. The tutor is Maya Wilson, a 28-year-old former schoolteacher from Chicago. For 6 months, she wasn't just teaching English. She was collecting evidence. But how does the FBI place an agent inside a fortress like this? They use the one person he'd never suspect, the woman his daughter calls her best friend. For 3 years, Yi Park operated in the shadows of Seoul's glittering Gangnam district, his name appearing on no corporate registry, his face in no society photos. His front was a boutique import-export firm specializing in industrial equipment. The real business was brokering deals for the Korea Mining Development Trading Corporation, North Korea's primary arms dealer. He moved missile guidance components through shell companies in Malaysia, arranged shipments of armored vehicle parts via cargo planes refueling in Uzbekistan, and negotiated with buyers from conflicts the world had almost forgotten. He earned an estimated $17 million, and he did it all from a penthouse overlooking the Han River. The FBI's interest began with a wiretap in Bucharest. A Romanian fixer, arrested for smuggling, offered a name in exchange for leniency: the Soul Ghost. He described a broker who never traveled with the weapons, only the blueprints and encryption keys for their transfer. Payments were made in cryptocurrency, laundered through a web of online gaming platforms. The Bureau's Counterproliferation Center opened a file. But they had no face, no voice, and no direct link to US soil required for a full investigation. Then a break. A shipment of precision lathes, capable of machining nuclear centrifuge components, was intercepted in Taiwan. The digital paperwork trail led back to a server registered to a bland corporate address in Seoul. The address was a virtual office. But the server logs showed one consistent access point: a residential IP address in the Tower Palace complex, one of the most secure buildings in South Korea. The target now had an address, but the penthouse was a fortress. Security was private, loyal, and meticulous. Traditional surveillance, wiretaps, observation posts was impossible. The South Korean National Intelligence Service was notified, but they moved cautiously. The political fallout of a failed operation against a wealthy, well-connected individual was a career ender. The FBI needed someone on the inside, not in his office, but in his home, where he might let his guard down, where he talked on the phone, where he kept his real records. They found their path in through a single, vulnerable point: his daughter, Sumin. Yi Park was a ghost in the business world, but as a father, he was fiercely, publicly present. He wanted his 8-year-old daughter to have every advantage, including perfect, fluent English. He had fired 2 previous tutors for mediocre results. The FBI saw an opening. They needed an agent who could pass not just as a tutor, but as the kind of person a paranoid man would invite into his sanctuary. Someone non-threatening, someone excellent, someone who could build genuine trust with a child. That person was Maya Wilson, 28, a former elementary school teacher from Chicago's South Side, fluent in Korean, which she learned from her grandmother. But Maya wasn't just a teacher. For 4 years, she had been an FBI special agent, recruited for her linguistic skills and her preternatural calm. She had spent 18 months in the grueling undercover operations school, learning tradecraft, surveillance detection, and the art of building a legend, a false identity so deep it can withstand intense scrutiny. Her instructor's final evaluation read, "Possesses a unique ability to project authentic warmth while maintaining operational distance." She was the perfect weapon disguised as a caretaker. The operation, codenamed Ghostwriter, required 18 layers of approval from the FBI and the Department of Justice. The risk assessment was 53 pages long. It outlined the dangers. Discovery meant certain imprisonment or worse in a foreign country. The legal pitfalls: entrapment, overreach, diplomatic incident. The psychological cost for the agent: total isolation. The budget was approved at $1.2 million. They built Elise Carter. Elise had a master's in education from Northwestern, a digital footprint of volunteer work, and references from now-closed private schools. Her cover was that she was in Seoul for a cultural gap year before pursuing a PhD. Every detail was backstopped, every document forged by the Bureau's documentation unit. But here's the thing they couldn't fabricate: the connection. The operation would live or die on whether an 8-year-old girl believed her tutor liked her. Maya's briefing included thick dossiers on Sumin, her love for a cartoon rabbit named Mori, her fear of thunder, her struggle with math. Your primary objective is her welfare, her handler, Frank, told her in a safe house 2 days before insertion. Secondary is evidence. If those two ever conflict, you extract. The girl is not a tool. Maya understood. She had taught children like Sumin. The thought of using one as bait made her sick. But the thought of the weapons Yi Park was moving, weapons that ended up in the hands of militias that targeted schools, made her sicker. The interview was held at a luxury hotel cafe. Yi Park arrived 10 minutes late, scanning the room with the detached efficiency of a man used to assessing threats. He was handsome, sharp, his questions precise. He tested her Korean, questioned her lesson plans, and finally asked why she left Chicago. Maya as Elise gave the rehearsed answer: a painful breakup, a need for a new start. She saw him soften, almost imperceptibly. He recognized the language of personal loss. He hired her on the spot, 3 days a week, 2 hours a day, starting Monday. The first day Maya crossed the threshold into the penthouse. It was all cold marble and floor-to-ceiling glass, a museum of wealth with no warmth. Sumin was a small, serious figure in a navy uniform, her eyes huge with shy curiosity. The first lesson was simple, reading a picture book about Mori the rabbit. Maya watched the girl's face, not the father lurking in the doorway. She made a silly voice for the rabbit. Sumin's lips twitched, not a smile, but the room for one. Within a month, the routine was set. Lessons moved from the formal study to Sumin's bedroom floor, scattered with stuffed animals. Yi Park began to linger less. He'd work in his adjacent office, the door open, speaking in low Korean on calls. Maya's training kicked in. She memorized cadences, repeated names, catalogued the timing of his calls, always between 2:10 and 2:20 in the afternoon, a window she later learned corresponded with a satellite pass over the Sea of Japan. She wore a blouse with a button camera, recording documents left briefly on his desk. She carried a purse with a receiver that could capture cell phone frequencies from 20 feet away. The intelligence began to trickle in: invoices for marine diesel engines destined for a port in Syria, a spreadsheet with coordinates that matched known arms drop zones in Libya. And she bonded with Sumin. Genuinely, the girl was lonely, brilliant, and starved for gentle attention. They baked cookies, the flowery mess a stark contrast to the sterile kitchen. They wrote stories about Mori the rabbit having spy adventures. Maya felt the line between her identity and her cover blurring every time Sumin hugged her goodbye. Her nightly encrypted reports to Frank grew longer, the sections about the child more detailed. Subject's daughter expressed anxiety about an upcoming math test, provided comfort. No intelligence gathered during this period. Frank's replies grew terse: maintain focus on primary objective. The crisis came in the 3rd month. Sumin, excited after school play, ran into her father's office to show him her costume. Maya followed, stopping short at the door. On Yi Park's large monitor was not a spreadsheet, but a live video feed. It showed a warehouse somewhere, with men crating long, cylindrical objects wrapped in green plastic. Ballistic missile bodies. Yi Park, furious, snapped the laptop shut and scooped up his daughter, his smile strained. That night, in her tiny apartment, Maya vomited. The abstract evil in her briefing had a concrete shape. It was wrapped in green plastic, and the man who sold it carried his daughter on his shoulders. She requested an emergency meeting. In a parked car by the river, Frank listened. "We have enough for the South Koreans to raid him now," she said, her voice tight. "The video, the invoices, it's enough." Frank shook his head. "It's enough for him. We want the network. The buyers, the shipping routes, the bankers. He's one node. We need the entire circuit board. You stay in place." And his daughter, she was in that room. "That is not your operational priority, Elise." He always used her cover name when giving hard orders. "Your priority is to get access to his encrypted server. We believe the passwords are in the apartment. Find them." Maya went back. The next lesson, Sumin drew a picture, her father, herself, and Maya all holding hands. She titled it My Family. Yi Park found it taped to the refrigerator. He stared at it for a long time. When he looked at Maya, his usual guarded expression was gone. In its place was something quieter, more terrifying. It was gratitude. He had let a stranger into the most vulnerable part of his life, and she had made it better. He trusted her. That Friday, he did something he had never done before. He had to take an urgent call during Sumin's lesson. "Miss Carter," he said, the formality still there. "Would you mind taking Sumin to the balcony garden for her reading? I need the office. It will be just 20 minutes." The balcony, his sanctum, where he took his most sensitive calls, believing the open air and the 43-story drop provided privacy from electronic eavesdropping. He was handing her, and her purse with its sophisticated receiver, a front-row seat. Maya took Sumin's hand, grabbed their book, and walked out into the Seoul twilight. As Sumin read aloud about Mori the rabbit, Maya positioned her purse on the wrought iron table, its antenna subtly oriented toward the office. She heard the sliding door open behind her. Yi Park stepped out, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Korean. He gave her a brief nod and walked to the far railing, his back to them. Maya stroked Sumin's hair, encouraging her reading, as the receiver in her purse captured every word Yi Park said. He was talking about shipping lanes, about a special package requiring extra insurance. He mentioned a name, Vladislav, and then a string of numbers and letters that sounded like nothing Sumin would ever recite, a server address and a password. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, the keys to the kingdom. She had them, she just had to transmit them. The protocol was to wait, to send the data during her scheduled nightly burst transmission from her apartment, but this was too critical. The rules allowed for an emergency signal if the intelligence was perishable. She made a decision. As Sumin turned the page, Maya whispered, "Sweetie, I have a tickle in my throat. I need some water. You keep reading to Mori, I'll be right back." She slipped her secure, disguised phone from her pocket and walked to the opposite side of the balcony, near a large potted fern, pretending to take a personal call. She entered the emergency sequence, connecting her directly to Frank's secure line at the embassy. The phone used a frequency-hopping algorithm that was nearly untraceable. She began to speak in a low, clear voice, using the pre-agreed code for transmitting critical access credentials. She didn't see Yi Park end his call. She didn't hear his footsteps on the polished concrete. She was halfway through reciting the password string when she sensed a presence and turned. He was standing 5 feet away, frozen, his own phone hanging limp at his side. He wasn't looking at her phone. He was looking at her face, at the focused, detached, professional expression that had replaced Elise Carter's gentle warmth. He heard the flat, coded English she was speaking into the device, a syntax no teacher would ever use. Their eyes locked. The sounds of the city faded. In that instant, the entire carefully constructed fiction of the last 6 months evaporated. He heard the last few words she uttered before she went silent. "Tango is secured. I repeat, the package is secured." Yi Park's face didn't contort in anger. It collapsed. It was the devastation of a man not just betrayed, but unraveled. He looked from her to his daughter happily reading on the bench and back to her. The trust, the picture on the refrigerator, the entire second family he had built in his mind, all of it was a weapon aimed directly at him. He didn't shout. His voice was a low, shattered thing. "Who are you?" Maya said nothing. She slowly lowered the phone, her mind racing through extraction protocols, calculating the distance to the door, the safety of the child. He took a step forward, his eyes darting to Sumin, who was now looking up, sensing the change in the air. "Appa." He stopped. The reality of his situation crashed down. If he touched the tutor, if he caused a scene, the authorities his daughter didn't even know were listening would swarm the building. His daughter would see him arrested. He was trapped in his own penthouse, paralyzed by the very vulnerability he had created. Maya broke the silence, her voice now entirely her own, the soft teacher's cadence gone. "You need to step inside, Mr. Park. Now, let's not do this in front of her." And in that moment, Yi Park made his choice. He turned to his daughter, forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and said, "Keep reading, Sumin. I need to talk to your teacher about a surprise for you." He turned and walked back into the living room, leaving the balcony door open. A silent command for her to follow. Maya looked at Su Min, gave her the most reassuring smile she could muster, and then followed the arms dealer into the lion's den. The sliding door whispered shut behind her, sealing her inside with a man who had just lost everything. The living room was a silent battlefield. Yi Park didn't move toward a weapon or a phone. He walked to his bar, poured 2 fingers of whiskey with a steady hand, and drank it in one go. He finally looked at Maya, his voice a controlled monotone. "You are FBI." It wasn't a question. Maya said nothing. Her training screamed at her to establish control, to dictate terms. But the operational handbook didn't have a chapter for this. Standing in the home of a man whose child you've just tucked in for a pretend nap, whose world you've just detonated. "Who else knows you're here?" he asked, his eyes darting to the balcony door, to his daughter, still visible as a small, reading silhouette. "My handler," Maya said, "and a tactical team is 15 minutes away if I don't check in. You know how this works, Mr. Park. It's over." He let out a short, brittle laugh. "Over? You think this is over? You have a password, you heard a name, Vladislav, you know nothing." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "If you knew what that name meant, you would never have said it out loud on my balcony. You just signed your own death warrant and maybe my daughter's." This was the pivot, the first reframing. He wasn't afraid of prison, he was afraid of something or someone worse. "Explain," Maya said, her own voice low. "Vladislav Orlov is not a client. He is the principal of a private military network called Zashchita. He doesn't buy missiles, he buys entire wars. And 6 months ago, he decided my cut was too large. He has been looking for a reason to seize my operations, my contacts, my routes. If he suspects I have been compromised by American intelligence, he will not wait for evidence. He will erase the liability. That includes everyone in this apartment." Maya's mind raced. Orlov. The name was in the periphery of her briefing, a shadowy figure linked to destabilization campaigns in 3 African nations, but never directly to Park. The FBI's intel was wrong. They thought Park was the kingpin. He was just a lucrative subsidiary, and he was in danger of a hostile takeover by a far more violent conglomerate. "Then you have a choice," Maya said, adapting in real time. "You can come with me into FBI custody where you will be protected, or you can wait for Orlov's people to come through that door. Which safety would you prefer for Su Min?" He flinched at his daughter's name. "You do not get to use her. You used her for 6 months. You do not get to pretend you care now." "I do care," Maya said, and it was the first completely true thing she'd said to him. "That's why I'm giving you this choice. My mission was to stop the flow of weapons. If Orlov is worse, then my mission just changed. Help me stop him." He stared at her, searching for the lie. He saw none. He saw only the exhausted resolve of someone who had also been living a double life. "You are a very good liar, Miss Carter, or whatever your name is." "Maya, my name is Maya Wilson." The exchange of her real name was a psychological surrender, a tiny token of trust. It changed the air in the room. He paced to the window, looking out at the city he had ruled from the shadows. "If I help you, what happens to me?" "That's not my decision, but cooperation, full and immediate, is your only bargaining chip. You give us Orlov, his network, his banking, everything. In return, you negotiate from a position of value, not from a cell." "And Su Min? She is an innocent child. She will be protected." He was silent for a full minute. The only sound was the faint murmur of Su Min reading to her stuffed rabbit. Finally, he spoke. "There is a server not here, in a data vault in Singapore. It contains every transaction, every communication, every shipment route for the last 5 years. It has biometric locks, my fingerprint and retinal scan. Orlov has been trying to access it for a year. He cannot. Without it, you have nothing but my testimony, which his lawyers will paint as the lies of a desperate man trying to avoid prison." Maya understood. The server was the entire case. It was also her new mission objective. How do we get it? "We don't. I do. I have a scheduled authentication check in 48 hours, a routine ping to keep the vault lease active. If I miss it, the vault company flags it. If I try to access it remotely from a new location, it triggers a security protocol that encrypts everything permanently. I have to go to Singapore, in person. It was an impossible ask, letting a high-value target travel to a foreign country with minimal extradition ties. Frank would never approve it. The entire operation would be exposed to catastrophic risk. But then Yi Park delivered the second pivot, the one that changed the game entirely. You think I am the only one Olive is watching? You are wrong. Your FBI has a leak. Maya froze. What? 8 weeks ago, a man in a suit, American, met with a Korean intelligence officer at a bar in Itaewon. I have a photograph. He walked to a bookshelf, removed a hollowed-out volume, and pulled out a glossy print. It showed two men at a dim corner table. One was a known KNIS lieutenant. The other was Assistant Legal Attaché Daniel Brewer from the U.S. Embassy. Brewer was not on the Ghostwriter task force, but he had high-level clearance to liaise with South Korean intelligence. The timestamp was the day after the FBI had intercepted the Taiwan lathe shipment, the break that started it all. He was selling information, Yi Park said quietly, telling the KNIS about your investigation. The KNIS told one of my business partners as a courtesy warning. I paid them double to tell me who gave the warning and to keep quiet. I have been watching you watch me for 2 months, Maya Wilson. I knew you were coming. I just didn't know you would be the one teaching my daughter how to read. The revelation was a sucker punch. The entire operation had been compromised from its first major breakthrough. Her cover, her safety, had been hanging by a thread held by the very man she was sent to destroy. He had protected his own operation by protecting her asterisk. Why, Maya breathed, why didn't you have me removed? He looked toward the balcony. Because by the time I confirmed it was you, she loved you, and you were good for her, I decided the risk was manageable. A single agent, gathering low-level intelligence, was less of a threat than the chaos of removing you and terrifying my child. It was a calculation, a father's calculation, and it was the worst mistake of my life. The moral ground had just evaporated. He wasn't a monster. He was a corrupt, calculating man who loved his daughter more than he feared the law, and he had, in his own twisted way, been her unwitting guardian. Maya's secure phone vibrated in her pocket. A coded text from Frank, status, signal received but garbled, confirm package secured. She had to respond, but everything was different now. She typed a coded reply, her mind working at lightning speed. Package secured, unexpected complications, asset claims hostile takeover imminent by Zashchita, claims counterintelligence leak via Brewer, request immediate verification and standby. She looked at Yi Park. I just bought you a few hours. They will check the Brewer lead. If it's true, you have credibility. If you're lying, they will tear this building apart. Now we have a more immediate problem. Sumin was tapping on the glass door, her book clutched to her chest. Appa, I'm finished. Can Maya stay for dinner? The ordinary request, in the middle of the seismic, was heartbreaking. Yi Park's mask of controlled fury shattered for a second, revealing pure anguish. He composed himself, walked to the door, and slid it open. Not tonight, little dove. Maya has to go home, but she'll be back for your lesson on Monday, okay? He was playing along, to keep his daughter calm, to buy time, to maintain the last shred of normalcy before the world ended. Sumin's face fell, but she nodded. Maya forced a warm smile, her professional disguise now a prison. Monday, we'll read the next Mori adventure, I promise. The lie tasted like ash. She gathered her purse, the receiver inside now a relic of a failed approach. Yi Park walked her to the private elevator, away from Sumin's hearing. As the doors opened, he spoke, his voice barely audible. The leak means your people cannot be trusted. If you tell them about Singapore, Olive will know within hours. You have to decide who you are working for, the Bureau, or stopping the weapons. The doors began to close. He held them with his hand. Come back tomorrow for her lesson. We will talk. If you bring your team, I will know, and you will learn what a man with nothing left to lose can do. The elevator descended. Maya leaned against the wall, her legs weak. In 45 minutes, her mission had inverted. Her target was now a potential asset. Her agency was compromised, and a little girl's weekly reading lesson was the most dangerous rendezvous in Asia. Back in her apartment, she encrypted her full debrief, detailing Park's claims about Orlov and Brewer. She requested urgent, eyes-only verification. The response from Frank came 90 minutes later. It was not the shocked denial she expected. It was 3 lines: Brewer under internal review as of last week. Details classified. Your operational priority remains Park. Do not pursue Zashchita tangent. Repeat, do not pursue. They knew the FBI already suspected Brewer, and they hadn't told her. They'd left her in the field, blown, potentially in danger from their own side. Frank's order to ignore the Orlov lead was a bureaucratic wall. He was containing the scandal, not adapting to the new threat. Maya made her second treasonous decision of the night. She used an encrypted, non-bureau channel to access an old contact at the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. She asked for any flagged transactions linked to Zashchita or Vladislav Orlov in the last 72 hours. The answer came back an hour later: a series of massive transfers from a Cyprus bank to a security company in Thailand. The memo line: Singapore contingency. Orlov was moving money. He was preparing for something in Singapore. Park was telling the truth. The next morning, Maya walked back into the penthouse. Sumin ran to her, hugging her legs. Park watched from the kitchen doorway, a cup of coffee in his hand. The domestic scene was a perfect lie. During the lesson, while Sumin practiced writing sentences, Park slipped a folded note next to Maya's bag. It read, "Authentication window opens 9 a.m. day after tomorrow. Singapore. I have 2 tickets on a private charter under aliases. You come as my assistant or I go alone. Decide by tonight." He wasn't asking for permission. He was presenting a fait accompli. If she stopped him, the server was lost. If she went with him, she was going rogue, against direct orders, with a high-value target, into a jurisdiction where Orlov's people were clearly preparing to move. That afternoon, after the lesson, as she was leaving, Park stopped her at the door. Sumin was in her room. "You verified what I said about Brewer," he stated. "I did. And your orders? To focus on you." He nodded a grim understanding. "So you see the trap. Your bureau wants a clean win, me. They do not want the messy war with Zashchita. They will sacrifice the bigger network to get their arrest and contain their embarrassment. And in doing so, they will hand Orlov everything I built, making him stronger. You have to choose, Agent Wilson, the good soldier or the right mission." He closed the door. Maya stood in the hall, the weight of the choice crushing her. Going to Singapore was career suicide. It was likely literal suicide. But letting Park go alone meant losing the evidence forever and possibly signing his and his daughter's death warrants. That night she packed a go-bag. She wrote a letter to Frank, explaining her reasoning, and left it in a dead drop to be opened if she didn't check in 72 hours. She was cutting the tether. At 4 a.m., a black sedan picked her up not from her apartment, but from a metro station. Park was inside, dressed in a sharp business suit, a second passport in his hand for her. The photo was of her, but the name was different: Elena Vance. "You are my corporate archivist," he said, as the car sped toward a private airfield. "Your job is to ensure the integrity of the data retrieval. Do not speak unless spoken to. And remember, from this moment, we are not being hunted just by your FBI, we are being hunted by mine." As the jet climbed over the Yellow Sea, Maya looked at the man she was supposed to arrest, now her unlikely partner in a rogue operation. He stared out the window, his profile etched with fear and determination. He wasn't doing this for a deal. He was doing it for his daughter's future. And Maya, against every protocol, was helping him. The plane landed in Singapore at 7 in the morning. The air was thick and humid. They were met by a driver. As their car merged into the traffic, Park's phone buzzed. He read a message, and his face went pale. He showed it to Maya. It was from an unknown number. "Welcome to Singapore, Yi. The vault is so well protected, but little girls are not. Give us the access codes in the next hour, or Sumin's next tutor will be teaching her in hell." Attached was a live feed. It showed the hallway outside Park's penthouse in Seoul. 2 men in delivery uniforms were standing by his door, one holding a device that looked like a compact breaching charge. Olav hadn't followed Yi Park to Singapore. He had gone straight to the source of his weakness. He was going to take the daughter. For 5 seconds, Yi Park stopped breathing. The world narrowed to the phone screen, to the image of the two men outside the only home his daughter had ever known. Then the operative part of his brain, the part that had survived a decade in the shadows, took over. He didn't panic. He opened a different app on his phone and typed a rapid sequence. A second live feed appeared. This one was from inside the penthouse, showing Su Min's bedroom. She was sitting on her bed, coloring, completely unaware. And standing just inside her doorway was a woman in a black suit, her posture alert, a discreet earpiece in her ear. Maya stared. "Who is that?" "My contingency," Yi Park said, his voice a tight wire. "Her name is Jae-yoon, former Korean Special Forces. She has been Su Min's invisible guardian for 2 years. She lives in the service apartment 1 floor down. The moment my biometrics left Korean airspace, she moved in. Olav's men are not getting through that door, but that is not the problem." He zoomed in on the device in the lead man's hand. It wasn't a breaching charge. It was a specialized chemical injector, the kind used by pest control or in the wrong hands for targeted assassinations. They are not here to kidnap. They are here to poison the air filtration system. A tragic accident. A wealthy businessman's daughter, dead from a rare gas leak while her father is abroad. They are creating a scenario, one that would break me and leave my assets uncontested. He typed another command. The feed split, showing 4 more angles: the building's service entrance, the parking garage, the rooftop helipad, and the lobby. Each showed more of Olav's operatives, blending in, establishing a perimeter. They weren't trying to hide. They were demonstrating their control. The message was clear: we own your fortress. Yi Park looked at Maya, his eyes hollow. "I miscalculated. I thought he would come for the server. He is coming for my soul. He will make me choose the data for her life. And when I give it to him, he will kill us both anyway." Maya's mind, trained for tactical puzzles, saw the pieces. Olav had them in a pincer. Threatened the child to force the father's hand, while his own men were undoubtedly already in Singapore, waiting to intercept them at the vault. It was a 2-city siege. She had to break the logic. We don't play his game. We change the board. How long can Jae-yoon hold the apartment? Indefinitely, against a direct assault. Against a chemical agent. She has sealed the vents in Su Min's room and has oxygen tanks. She can last 72 hours. After that, the air runs out. 72 hours. They had to get the server, use it to dismantle Olav's leverage, and get back to Seoul, all while being hunted. It was impossible. But then Maya remembered the first rule of undercover work. When your cover is blown, you don't retreat. You advance in a different direction. Olav thought he was fighting Yi Park, a businessman with a sentimental weakness. He didn't know he was also fighting the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, even if one agent was currently operating off the books. "Give me your phone," she said. Handed it over, she opened the threat message and typed a reply not to the sender, but to the original number. Yi had received the Brewer leak photo from his contact inside the Korean National Intelligence Service. She typed in Korean, "This is Agent Maya Wilson, FBI. The subject is Zash Cheetah. They are attempting a chemical attack on a Korean citizen in the Tower Palace. You have 5 minutes to intercept, or the FBI goes public with your officers leaked to Brewer. Send confirmation." She hit send. Yi Park stared at her, shocked. "You are blackmailing my country's intelligence service." "I'm incentivizing them. They want the Brewer scandal buried. I'm offering them a way to do that by being heroes. They stop the attack. They get credit for saving a little girl and breaking a foreign assassination ring. Their leak never has to come out." 2 minutes later, the phone buzzed. A new message from a different number: "Stand by." On the live feed from the hallway, they watched as 4 plainclothes KNIS agents emerged from the stairwell, silent and efficient. They subdued Olav's 2 men in less than 10 seconds, confiscating the injector. The feed from the lobby showed more arrests. The siege was over, dismantled from within by the very people Olav had tried to corrupt. Yi Park let out a shuddering breath, his shoulders slumping, but Maya wasn't finished. "They'll hold Su Min in protective custody now. She's safe, but they will also want you, Yi, and me. We just turned their problem into our problem. We have less time now." They arrived at the data vault, a nondescript building in the Raffles Place financial district. The process was clinical, retinal scan, fingerprint, a 16-digit code spoken aloud. A clerk led them to a private viewing room. The server was a black monolith in a glass-walled cage. Yi Park initiated the data transfer to a secure, encrypted drive he produced. As the progress bar filled, he spoke quietly to Maya. "There is something else on here, something I never meant to use. A file called insurance. What's in it?" Proof that Orlov's network is not private. It is a covert arm of a foreign intelligence service. Russian GRU Unit 29155. He is not a businessman, he is a colonel. His weapons deals are not for profit. They are for geopolitical destabilization. This file has satellite imagery, intercepted communications, bank transfers from government accounts. If this gets out, it is not a crime. It is an act of war. This was the wait, it gets worse moment. They weren't just stealing evidence for a trial, they were stealing state secrets. The stakes had just exploded from criminal to geopolitical. The transfer completed. Yi Park ejected the drive and handed it to Maya. "You wanted to stop the weapons, this will stop them. It will also start a conflict that could get thousands killed. The choice is no longer mine, it is yours." At that moment, the clerk's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his eyes flicked to them. He hung up and pressed a button under his desk. A soft alarm pulsed. "I am sorry, Mr. Kim," he said, using Yi's alias. "There has been a security flag from our head office. We are required to detain you until the authorities arrive." Orlov had gotten to the vault company, or the KNIS had tracked them. It didn't matter, the exits were sealing. Yi Park looked at Maya, a sad, resigned smile on his face. "Take the back hall. There is a service elevator that goes to the parking garage. It is keyed to this." He slipped her a keycard. "Go, get the data to someone who can use it. And you. I will delay them. For Sumin, for you, tell her I tried to be better at the end." Maya hesitated for only a second. Then she took the drive and ran, not out of cowardice, but because the mission had finally clarified. The objective was the data. She heard shouting behind her as she found the service elevator. The doors closed. She descended to the garage, where a motorcycle, prearranged by Yi as part of his escape plan, was waiting with the key in the ignition. She sped into the Singapore streets, the drive burning a hole in her pocket. She needed to get the data to a place Orlov couldn't touch it, and where the FBI's compromised chain couldn't bury it. She thought of her old Treasury contact, but this was beyond FinCEN. This was for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence or the National Security Council. She was a field agent. She had no conduit that high. Then she remembered the dead drop letter she left for Frank. In it, she had included a failsafe, a contact number for the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility, the Internal Affairs Division. They were clean. They had to be. She pulled over in a crowded market, bought a burner phone, and made the call. "Office of Professional Responsibility, Agent Dyers." Maya identified herself with her service number and a code phrase indicating a critical compromise. "I am in possession of Grade A catastrophic intelligence regarding a GRU front company, Zashchita. The Ghostwriter Task Force is compromised. I need immediate extraction and a direct channel to the director." There was a pause, then the clicking of a keyboard. "Your location." "Singapore. I am being pursued by hostiles and potentially by compromised elements of our own side." "Understood, do not move. A signal is being sent to the nearest secure location, the United States Embassy. You see the flag, you run to it. Do not trust anyone else. We are green-lighting Embassy Marines to retrieve you. Confirm." "I confirm." She looked up. The embassy was 3 blocks away, the flag just visible over the rooftops. She abandoned the motorcycle and ran, weaving through the crowd. She was halfway there when a black van swerved to block her path. 2 men jumped out, Orlov's men. They had found her. Maya turned to run back, but 2 more emerged from an alley. She was surrounded in the middle of a busy sidewalk. She reached for a weapon she didn't have. The lead man smiled, a thin, cruel expression. "The drive, please, Agent Wilson." Then a new voice, loud and authoritative in American English. "Step away from the woman. Now." 4 U.S. Marines in combat gear, their rifles not raised but clearly ready, moved through the crowd. The embassy guard had come out beyond the gate. Olaf's men froze, calculating the cost of an international incident on a Singapore street in broad daylight. The leader gave a slight nod, and they melted back into the crowd. A Marine sergeant approached Maya. "Agent Wilson, come with us, ma'am." Inside the embassy, in a secure briefing room, Maya handed the drive to a stern-looking woman from the CIA's station chief, who had been summoned. As the data was reviewed, the room grew quiet. Then frantic activity. Secure calls were placed to Washington. Maya gave her debrief to two stone-faced agents from OPR. She told them everything: the operation, the leak, Brewer, Orlov, the GRU connection, and Yi Park's sacrifice. An hour later, the station chief put a hand on her shoulder. "Park is in Singaporean custody. The KNIS is demanding his extradition. Orlov has gone to ground. But because of this," she tapped the drive, "we have his entire network, his funding, his GRU handlers. We are rolling it up as we speak. You did good, kid. You also broke every rule in the book." "What happens to Yi Park?" Maya asked. "That's above our pay grade. He's a valuable asset now, and a pawn in a much bigger game. He'll probably be traded. Some dark site for a decade of debriefs, then a new identity if he's lucky. And Su Min, in protective custody with the KNIS. She's asking for her father and her teacher." Maya closed her eyes. The cost was written on her face. The station chief softened. "There's a jet waiting for you at Changi. You're going home. The OPR agents will accompany you. There will be a hearing, but with what you've delivered, I doubt you'll be holding a desk for long." On the flight back to the United States, Maya looked out the window at the endless ocean. She had the victory. The network was collapsing. The weapons would stop. But she saw Yi Park's resigned smile. She saw Su Min coloring on her bed, unaware her life had been saved and destroyed in the same hour. She had done the right thing, so why did it feel like a defeat? The plane landed at Andrews Air Force Base. As she walked down the stairs, she was met not by Frank, but by two men in dark suits. Agent Wilson, the Director of National Intelligence, would like a word. This was it, the end of her career, or the beginning of something else entirely. She had stolen state secrets, gone rogue, and blackmailed a foreign agency. She had also prevented an assassination and exposed a GRU operation. She followed the men into a waiting car, the drive's contents now in the hands of the most powerful intelligence official in the country. The car didn't take her to FBI headquarters. It took her to a secure facility in Virginia. Inside, in a sparse conference room, she was left alone with a large monitor. It flickered to life. The face that appeared was not the DNI, it was Yi Park. He was in a plain room, but not a prison cell. It looked like a safe house. He was alive. "Maya," he said, his voice clear through the secure link. "How? Your people made a trade. My full cooperation, my complete debrief on the GRU's methods, in exchange for witness protection. A new life, for me and for Su Min." Maya felt a surge of relief, so intense it was dizzying. "Where is she?" "She is here, she is safe. She asks about you every day." The screen split. Su Min's face appeared, tentative, then breaking into a smile. "Maya, teacher." Tears welled in Maya's eyes. "Hi, sweetheart. I colored a picture for you. It's you and me and Appa and Maury the rabbit. We are all together." The image was almost identical to the one she'd drawn in Seoul. A family, a different kind of family, forged in fire and lies, and somehow real care. Yi Park's face returned full screen. "They tell me I have you to thank, for keeping your word, for getting the data to the right people." "I told you I cared about her," Maya said, her voice thick. "I know, and that is the only reason any of this is possible. Thank you, Maya Wilson." The screen went dark. The door to the conference room opened. The DNI's chief of staff entered. "Agent Wilson, the director is impressed. We have a proposition for you. The Counterproliferation Center is creating a new unit. Covert placement, long-term embedding. We need someone who understands the human cost and the strategic necessity. Someone who knows how to build trust to break a network. The job is yours if you want it, but you should know it means more balconies. Maury difficult goodbyes. Maury pictures drawn by children you might have to leave behind." Maya sat in the silence of the sterile room. She thought of the penthouse, the balcony, the little girl reading. She thought of green-wrapped missiles and her father's terrible calculations. She had sworn an oath to protect her country. She had also made a promise to a child. She looked up at the chief of staff, her face a mask of calm resolution, the same one Yi Park had seen on the balcony a world away. "Where do I sign?" Maya Wilson signed the papers, but her first assignment wasn't in a foreign penthouse. It was at a desk in Langley, Virginia, for 6 months of debriefing and strategic planning. The data from Yi Park's server was a tsunami of intelligence. In the first 90 days, it led to the freezing of $1.4 billion in assets across 12 countries, the arrest of 27 mid-level facilitators, and the exposure of 7 front companies used by GRU Unit 29155. Vladislav Orlov became an international fugitive, his photograph circulating through every intelligence agency in the West. The flow of weapons through his channels didn't slow, it stopped. But the real work was in the quiet rooms. Maya spent weeks with analysts, connecting dots only she could see, explaining the human rhythms of the Park household that had framed the digital evidence. She helped them understand that the most sensitive calls always happened just after Sumin's bath time, when Yi Park was emotionally raw and slightly less guarded. That the code word Mori in a text didn't refer to the rabbit, but to a shipping container route through the port of Mogadishu. The human intelligence had given the signal's intelligence its meaning. During this time, she was cleared of any wrongdoing by the Office of Professional Responsibility. The investigation into Daniel Brewer resulted in his arrest for espionage. He had been selling information not just to the KNIS, but through them to Orlov's network, creating a perfect feedback loop of betrayal. Frank, her handler, was reassigned to a training desk. His failure to alert her to the Brewer compromise, even as a precaution, was deemed a critical error. He never spoke to her again. And Yi Park, his debriefing was even more intensive. He was held at a secure location, not a prison, but a comfortable, isolated facility. For 8 hours a day, he sat with teams from the CIA, the DIA, and the State Department. He mapped out the entire architecture of North Korean arms trafficking for the past decade. He identified bankers in Cyprus, shipping magnates in Greece, and corrupt customs officials in 3 African nations. In exchange for this, and for his testimony against Orlov, should he ever be captured, the United States government granted him and his daughter new identities under the Witness Security Program. They were relocated to a small town in British Columbia. Yi Park, now known as David Kim, opened a modest bookstore. Sumin, now Sophie, enrolled in the local school. The transition was brutal. The man who had negotiated missile deals was now haggling with distributors over the cost of paperbacks. The girl who had lived in a marble tower now shared a backyard with a friendly dog named Buster. They were safe, but they were ghosts, haunted by the life they left behind. Maya received quarterly, sanitized reports on their well-being through secure channels. Subject David is adjusting, business is stable. Subject Sophie is achieving academically and has joined a soccer team. The reports never mentioned if Sophie still asked for her Maya teacher. Maya hoped she didn't. The kindest thing she could do for that child was to become a pleasant, distant memory. A year after the balcony, Maya was cleared for field work. Her first deployment was to Manila, posing as a financial consultant for a nonprofit. The target was a money laundering operation funneling cash to a separatist group. It was a standard, low-risk infiltration. She was good at it. She was calm, convincing, and detached, but something was different. Before, her empathy had been a tool. Now, it felt like a risk. She caught herself holding back from genuine connection with the people around her, fearing the terrible calculus it might one day require. She mentioned this in a mandated psych eval. The therapist, a former field agent himself, nodded. You lost the luxury of black and white. You saw the man behind the monster and the child behind the leverage. It makes the job harder. It also makes you better at it. Don't lose that conflict. It's what keeps you human. The final, public unraveling of Yi Park's old life happened not with a dramatic raid, but with a dry press release from the U.S. Department of the Treasury. It listed a series of entities and individuals designated as global weapons traffickers. Yi Park's former aliases were there, but his real name was conspicuously absent. The release noted the critical cooperation of a confidential source in dismantling the network. In Seoul, the story was a 7-day wonder. The mysterious soul ghost had vanished, his empire collapsed. Speculation ran from death to a secret deal with the Americans. The truth was quieter and stranger. 18 months after Singapore, Maya was in Warsaw, wrapping up another operation. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from an unknown, but internal, number. It was an address in Vancouver and a date 3 days hence. No explanation. Her new handler confirmed it was a sanctioned, off-the-books contact. A debriefing update, he said. She knew it wasn't a debrief. She flew to Canada under her own legend. The address led to a small, sun-dappled park overlooking the water. On a bench, reading a book, sat a man she barely recognized. Yi Park had grown a beard, and his hair was touched with gray. The sharp, anxious energy of the arms dealer was gone, replaced by a weary calm. He looked up, saw her, and didn't smile. He simply nodded. Maya sat beside him. For a few minutes, they watched the boats in silence. She's at a friend's house, he finally said. A sleepover, she is happy, she has friends, she still sleeps with the Maury rabbit you gave her. That's good, Maya said, her throat tight. I am not a good man, Maya, I know this, but I am trying to be a good father now. It is the only thing left to be. You saved her, that counts. We saved her, he corrected gently. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. I am not supposed to contact you. This is a one-time approved breach. I asked for it. I needed to give you this. Maya took the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was a child's drawing copied on a printer. The familiar stick figures, a man, a girl, a woman with curly hair, all holding hands. Underneath, in a child's careful print, it read, "To my teacher, I remember. Love, Sophie." Tears blurred Maya's vision. She had thought the child would forget. The drawing said otherwise. She asked me to send it, Yi said. I told her I would try, do not reply, it is not safe for her, but she wanted you to know. Maya folded the paper and placed it in her own pocket, a weight more precious than any encrypted drive. Thank you. He stood up. The life you gave us, it is a good life, quiet. It is what I should have wanted all along. Goodbye, Agent Wilson. He walked away down the path, a man disappearing into the ordinary world he had built from the ashes of his old one. Maya sat until the sun began to set, holding the proof that some bonds, forged in the most terrible circumstances, could not be completely severed. The surprising detail came 6 months later, through official channels. Maya was reviewing a file on a rising star in the European art world, a gallery owner suspected of using high-value paintings to launder money for remnants of the Orlov network. As she scanned the financials, a name jumped out, Jae-yoon, the former Special Forces operative who had protected Soo-min. According to the file, Jae-yoon had left South Korea and was now working as a highly paid, discreet security consultant for wealthy families in Zurich. Her primary client was listed as a trust fund called the White Rabbit Foundation. Maya dug deeper, using her new security clearances. The White Rabbit Foundation was a charitable trust registered in Liechtenstein. Its sole beneficiary was a minor child, Sophie Kim. Its funding source was a series of perfectly legal, anonymized donations that traced back, through several shells, to a liquidated asset fund in Singapore, the remains of Yi Park's legitimate business holdings. He had not just gone quietly into witness protection. He had used his last move as a master strategist to create an ironclad financial fortress for his daughter, administered by the most lethal guardian he knew. Soo-min would never want for anything, and she would always be protected. Yi Park had finally built something that couldn't be collapsed. Maya closed the file and didn't flag it. Some secrets were meant to be kept. Today, Maya Wilson still works for the unit she helped create. She is considered one of their most effective agents, specializing in long-term, deep-cover placements. She rarely thinks of the balcony in Seoul unless she is training a new recruit. Then she tells them this: the intelligence is in the routine. The truth is in the emotional rhythm. Your target is a person before they are a criminal. Understand what they love, and you will understand how they can be stopped. And remember, the child in the background is never just background. She lives in a small apartment with a view of no particular skyline. On her refrigerator, held by a simple magnet, is a copy of a child's drawing, 3 stick figures and a rabbit. It is her only personal decoration. It reminds her of the cost and the reason. The Korean arms dealer did collapse, not in a hail of bullets or a dramatic courtroom confession, but in the silent, brutal exchange of his entire world for a single small life. The FBI agent who helped bring him down didn't get a medal. She got a heavier conscience and a more complicated moral compass. And the little girl, the innocent heart of the entire operation, got a future. She got to play soccer and go to sleepovers and remember her teacher with love instead of fear. In the end, the weapon that destroyed the network wasn't a gun or a wiretap or a server full of secrets. It was a simple human truth. Even the most guarded man has a heart, and if you can find it, you can break him. But if you care for it, you might also accidentally save him. The operation known as Ghostwriter was filed away, its true story known only to a handful of people. It stands as a testament to a different kind of spycraft, one where the deepest cover is not a false identity, but genuine care, and the most powerful intelligence is not a stolen code, but a child's drawing that bridges two broken worlds, reminding everyone that even in the shadows, some lines should never be crossed. So what is the true cost of dismantling a shadow war? The story of Ghostwriter shows us that the battlefield is no longer just a desert or a jungle. It is a penthouse balcony, a child's bedroom, the quiet trust between a student and a teacher. In the 21st century, the most valuable intelligence isn't found in a briefcase passed in a dark alley. It's in the emotional vulnerabilities a target reveals over months of what they believe is normal life. We celebrate the takedown of criminal networks, and we should, but we rarely see the human scaffolding required to build that case. An agent like Maya Wilson doesn't just collect data, she carefully, painfully constructs a parallel reality. She becomes someone else, not for days, but for years. She builds real bonds she knows she may have to break. She offers genuine comfort as a tactical maneuver. The psychological toll of that duality is a hidden line item in the budget of national security. And what are the targets? Park was a criminal. He enabled violence and profited from chaos. He was also a father who loved his daughter more than his empire. The system needed him to be a monster to justify the operation, but Maya discovered a man, complex and flawed, whose greatest sin and his only redemption were the same thing, his love for a child. This gray area is where modern espionage increasingly operates. Not in black and white, but in the difficult, murky shades of human contradiction. The legacy of Operation Ghostwriter isn't just a list of frozen assets or arrested middlemen. Its legacy is a blueprint. It proved that the most impenetrable fortress isn't a bunker or a server farm, it's the private, domestic world of a human being, and that the key to that fortress isn't always a hack or a threat. Sometimes it's patience. It's showing up for Tuesday lessons. It's knowing how to braid hair or make jollof rice. It's remembering a child's favorite cartoon character. This case forces us to ask a difficult question. In our pursuit of security, how much humanity are we willing to weaponize? When we send an agent to befriend a child to get to a father, where is the line? Maya Wilson crossed that line the moment she hugged Soo Min goodbye and meant it. And in crossing it, she didn't just gain an asset. She inherited a moral debt that no government report can ever clear. Perhaps that's the ultimate lesson. In the silent war against the invisible networks that move weapons, money, and terror across the globe, the victor isn't the side with the most advanced technology. It's the side that best understands the human heart, its capacity for greed, for love, for fear, and for change. The side that can navigate the messy, painful, personal terrain where true loyalty is built and broken. The lights of Seoul still glitter. Somewhere, in a quiet corner of the world, a former arms dealer sells a copy of a book to a tourist. A little girl scores a goal on a soccer field. And an agent, somewhere, prepares to become someone else, to walk into another home, to begin the delicate, dangerous work of building trust in order to break it. The war in the shadows continues. It is fought not with soldiers, but with stories. And the most powerful weapon of all remains the simple, devastating power of a genuine connection. If you found this story of loyalty, betrayal, and the human cost of secrets compelling, make sure you're subscribed. We delve into the true stories behind the world's most hidden conflicts. The next target and the next impossible choice are just one click away. Thanks for